Well, thanks, everybody. This evening, we're very excited to have Justin Sipiorski here to talk to us about 40-year perspective of fishes of the Wisconsin River. Justin grew up in Stevens Point, just down the street from UW Stevens Point. And as a child, he and a friend fished as many central Wisconsin waters as they could reach with their bikes. Wisconsin River most prominently among them. He is a proud product of the Stevens Point public schools, including SPASH, where excellent teachers fostered his passion for biology, chemistry, natural resources, and the arts. Along the way, he benefited from a myriad of UWSP outreach programs in STEM and the arts. He received his bachelor's in fisheries and biology from UWSP in 1997. He interned in aquaculture in Virginia Tech in 1998. He received his master's in fish stress physiology from the University of South Dakota in 2000. He finished his PhD in zoology from Southern Illinois University, Carbondale, in 2011, where he studied the systematics and biogeography of gars. That must have been interesting. I find this part really interesting. You heard us talk about his interest in the arts as well. While a doctoral student, he also illustrated freshwater fishes for the Peterson Guidebook series, completing those illustrations as a curatorial assistant at the Florida Museum of Natural History at the University of Florida. He was hired as the ichthyologist and curator of fishes in the UWSP biology department in 2008 with Lynn Markham and the UW Extension Land Use Office. Recently, Justin has illustrated a series of children's books focusing on upper Midwestern non-game fishes and freshwater ecology. He curates the Becker Ichthyological Collection in the Olson Museum of Natural History. His students sample fishes from current populations and conduct research, including museum specimens, looking for similarities and differences among fish assemblages past and present. He now teaches introductory waters and fisheries field courses at UWSP Tree Haven Field Station. Welcome, Justin.
Oh yeah, this is an honor. I think I know like everybody in the audience. Yeah, so the talk is going to be relatively loose, sort of a collection of anecdotes with some major themes underlying everything. But yes, I'm honored to be here. Thank you for having me. It's good to see all of you. I don't know, how does that work? Here?
No,
there.
Oh, it's lights.
He's doing just that.
Oops. There you go. Much better. Not bad. Better? Yeah.
Very nice.
All right. Yeah, so I have, a community to thank. Do I see Al Haney? Is Al Haney here?
No, but I'll grab Willow.
I was gonna embarrass as many people as I could. So.
Not me on there.
because like, so here, the thing is in the way, but look, here's the original crew of the gymnastics folks.
Okay.
There's John, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and there's myself.
Yeah.
13 years old.
Here, Willow, you go ahead and embarrass.
Oh, hey Willow, good to see you.
And Brad Branwell regretted not being able to.
Oh,
here
okay.
tonight.
I'll reach out.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a community to thank, and I was gonna embarrass Al Haney. Here we are in the Meru Plateau just after summiting on Kilimanjaro. And here's Hans Strabel, my sister's father-in-law. There's Al Haney, my friend that I fished with forever, Mike is here, Mike Walrath.
How did you find that picture?
What's that?
Where'd you find that picture?
Oh, I've got pictures, man. I've got pictures. Yeah, and then, you know, my parents, my father's here, my son, and myself there. So yeah, I have lots of people to thank, lots of students like Willow. I noticed Willow's one of your officers or one of your leaders. I don't know, did Forrest make it here today? I'm sorry, I have pollen issues. My throat's a little bit goofy. And I also wanted to thank you all for putting together the Erickson Natural Area. And it's, you know, basically lilac blooming means bluegill spawning, means warblers are back, all at the same time. So I'm a very, as observant as I can be about the natural history phenomena that go on around here. So, yeah, I was hoping to embarrass as many folks as I could. I also have lots of colleagues from UW system here. I appreciate that. And you know, my family and the Walraths, we did a lot of camp. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Did a lot of camping together, a lot of canoeing together. And I think that was a firm foundation for all of the stuff that has transpired in my life so far. So yeah, with that, like I'll try to frame as best that I know some issues, some phenomena that are happening in the middle reach of the Wisconsin River. I'm focusing sort of basically like Wausau to Petenwell flowage, that stretch. Oops, those are my notes, excuse me. Yeah, so I grew up here as they said, and I was in the right place, right time with the right amount of skill sets to illustrate about a fifth of what's in the second edition of Field Guide to Freshwater Fish in North America. I also illustrated almost everything in the Fishes Nebraska Guide. And then with Lynn Markham in the back there, I illustrated the Fish Hotel, and then a couple of iterations of a series. I hope we can keep going of non-game fish books, sort of related to fish ecology, aquatic ecology, sort of lake health, river health, those sorts of things. Lately, I've been teaching at Tree Haven as well during the summers. I've got 5 weeks this time queued up. So that's Water 380. A couple of cool pictures. I don't know. This was a few seconds from each other. The fish decided to jump. It did not go into her wader. Yeah. But it still looks really cool. Yeah, so I just want to again do a shout out Lynn Markham for the 3 children's books. She's the main organizer of those efforts, and hopefully we'll have more to come. Yeah, and again, some more cool Tree Haven pictures. I also do what's called Point Haven or Stevens Point Haven. So these photos here are actually on the Wisconsin River right in town. So we have a lot of fun. It's a great time. I gotta get you out there, Mike. All right. So yeah, I got to learn how to use the barge shocking unit, and I got to learn how to run the shocking boat. And just some other random. I don't know why these are in there, but random pictures, I guess, of my fishing prowess. I guess I'm just saying that I've been around. I know a little bit about what's going on. But I wanted to, you know, I know you guys are an Audubon Society. During the pandemic, my late wife and I started feeding birds fairly heavily. And we can draw from these two shots. My camera is for underwater stuff. It's not for taking pictures of birds at any sort of high level of quality. And this is through a window. And you can see my dog, who's also deceased, did his best to put nose prints on the window. But within a week, this is February of 2020, so right in the middle of the pandemic. Within 1 week, we have red poles, right, feeding here alongside titmouse. When I moved to Wapaka 15 years ago, there were no titmouse in my neighborhood. Now there are multiple pairs. And then you have, a relatively common phenomenon where all the northern bird species come down during the winter when it's exceedingly harsh up in the taiga, up in Canada. And this is, juxtaposed, right? So you have a species making its way north as the climate gets warmer, juxtaposed with species that are sort of just doing their thing to deal with cold weather up north, and they make their way south. I didn't say this. I live in Wapaka now. Just in case you're wondering where exactly I live. That same year too, I was scrambling for my camera. It flew away. I know how this works in the bird world. I made my son and my wife stand at the window and look, and I gave them a quiz later on. But that same year in June, I had a blue grosbeak at that same feeder, but I couldn't verify with any photographical evidence whatsoever. So it's not really a thing, but both my wife and my son said it was not an indigo bunting. So we have 3 people that verify that. Anyway, so the slide here is put there. A lot of you are bird focused folks. To take the same mindset and apply it to the aquatics around here, the aquatic system. So there are basically 3 major collections of fishes in that catalog physically. When we say vouchering, we have actual specimens in a jar on a shelf. Most of the fishes ever collected from the state of Wisconsin. And we have the Beckers here. We have David and Patty Becker here, who are descendants of George Becker, who started the UWSP collection. And we have Bob Freckman here somewhere. I saw Bob. There's Bob. Yes, Bob, one of the founders of the UWSP Museum of Natural History. So we're blessed to have a wealth of specimens. There are about 35,000 lots at UWSP. That's all of one species collected at a place at a time. So there could be 100 individuals in there. There could be 500 individuals in there. There could be 2, could be 1. It's a jar that contains all those specimens. So among these 3 collections, we have about 1/3 of everything collected from Wisconsin, and a lot of that was because of George Becker. And then my immediate predecessor, Bill LeGrand, added quite a bit to the collections in the 80s and 90s. So whether or not the fishes were preserved and put into a collection, it varies quite a bit. And there are several major collecting efforts that were done over the course of the state's history. Green started in 1935. His advisor is Carl Hubbs. Carl Hubbs, I like to tell my students, followed the dams. There were a lot of hydroelectric dam efforts going on in the 20s and 30s. And Carl Hubbs sort of made a name keeping track of fishes as dams were built. Those lots are at the University of Michigan Museum of Zoology. That's the other major chunk of specimens that are out there. And then, you know, over the course of, you know, the late 1900s, we have Becker and LeGrand at USP. Don Fagot was a member of the Wisconsin DNR, did a massive survey in the 70s and 80s. And I think Dale was a huge part of that, right? Your brother? Yeah. Yep. Dale Becker was majorly involved in that. And then John Lyons was a student of the University of Wisconsin Center for Limnology with John J. Magnuson, and essentially grabbed the mantle of state ichthyologist. Retired relatively recently. He and I have published a couple of things together. He's more of a fish ecologist, but there's no one paying attention to the sort of site by site, moment by moment data for fish presence or absence than he had, basically until I came along, I guess. So he and I sort of share that mantle right now. I just, you know, always want to put out there whenever I talk that these collections are, well, let's put it this way. A few years back, before the pandemic, we almost lost the Becker collection because of fire code, essentially. We had too many gallons of alcohol on the wrong floor. So I fought, and we have a memorandum of understanding with the Stevens Point Fire Department to make sure that we can keep it where it is in the setup that Bill LeGrand built for it in the late 70s. The late 90s. Excuse me. So yeah, the collections are you know it doesn't even matter where this is. The Milwaukee Public Museum gave us a bunch of specimens right when I was hired, 2008, 2009. They went through the same fire code sorts of issues. They didn't have the right sprinkler systems, the right ventilation, and a whole bunch of specimens were off-site in a really expensive storage facility. So we took a bunch of specimens from them that were sort of holding in joint. So it's biological collections in general. It's a tenuous world out there. And lately, we went through kind of a budget crunch with the pandemic at UBSP. So lately, we can get a few $1,000s here and there, just for things like jars, alcohol, shelving, student help, labels, that sort of stuff. So it's always something that's foremost in my presentations to just give a shout out to biological collections everywhere. It's not easy. It's not even easy for the big collections. There are all sorts of issues that go on there. You know, the Smithsonian lost a bunch of funding with the latest rounds of federal whatever the heck is going on. Hopefully that stuff will be reinstated, but it doesn't have to be. Lately, I was able to get the remaining 43 copies of The Fishes of Wisconsin, written by George Becker, from the text rental system into my museum. So I have those locked down. I'm also working with archives to add, I was actually gonna reach out to you guys, pointing at David and Patty there. I'm working with archives to get all of these records that go into the chapter editions of the Fishes of Wisconsin. The Fishes of Wisconsin was a monumental book. Aside from 2 other volumes, it rejiggered the entire genre of regional fishes of books. So pre and post Fishes of Wisconsin, so pre and post 1983, fishes of or regional fishes books changed dramatically in their level of detail, largely driven by Fishes of Wisconsin, which was inspired by Fishes of Ohio and Fishes of Canada. And I have the privilege of overseeing about five drawer file cabinets of all of the manuscripts that go into the chapters of writing that book. And the map data, as well as the slides that created the prints. The slides of fishes were shot by Bill McKee. Many of you probably know Bill McKee. He's from the art department, UWSP, and also on the art tour in the fall. So most of those materials now are going to be shifted to archives as soon as the new library is done. So I'm very excited about that. And they'll be available for anybody who needs to look at them. But the coolest thing about Fishes of Wisconsin is that, and I neglected to put a slide here, is that multiple of George Becker's students were not used, but were part of the effort of putting that together. And I just had a poster presentation in our research symposium. I have lunch weekly with one of Becker's students from 1969. He was a lifelong worker in DATCAP. John Small is his name. Lots of students are mentioned in the text of Fishes of Wisconsin, part of their research papers that they did for his class over the years. One of the authors, go back up here, right here, Ed Peters, class of 65. Yeah, he's also one of Becker's students. Ed Peters worked on the silver chub. John Small worked on the pirate perch. Ed Peters is an emeritus professor of fisheries at University of Nebraska-Lincoln. He retired up north. He's living near Eau Claire. So lots and lots of folks contributed to that work. I'm so happy that we're going to have that all packaged up and put into archives. So, you know, with the bird slide showing, you know, characteristic redpoll come down in the middle of the winter behavior alongside of totally new species advancements. And Bob, you told me how it was relatively rare to have cardinals in the 60s, right? In Wisconsin, yeah. So, you know, cardinals are everywhere now. So with that in mind, what's I should have written that out. It's an index of biotic integrity. There's a lot of states that have a lot of regular work that goes on in various ecosystems. Essentially, you look at how many species there are, how many individuals relative to each other there are per species. They're often given some sort of weighting based on their tolerance for environmental factors. And you package that all up and it comes out, spits out a number. It's kind of like a credit score, sort of. That's what IBI is. So if you build IBIs like we have on the traditional, you know, background climate and weather patterns, those become outdated relatively quickly. So we have to keep track of changes. We have to keep track of relative abundances of various species. And it's, for fishes, it's a lot more tenuous than I would like. I'm gonna show you a bunch of maps with dots. My late wife didn't like me staring at maps with dots. So I didn't do that at home, but I always want to know where the dots were so that if I found a new location of something, a new locality for something, I could say it was a new locality for something, right? There was this thing called the Fish Mapper application. It was a joint effort between the Wisconsin DNR and the US Geological Survey. John Lyons was behind it. The data and the way it was presented is not in the same language as the current DNR webpage programs. So that's not available now. The data is still there, it didn't go away. One of our UBSP students was actually in charge of keeping data, so it's all still there. We'll probably get that going in. There's a cost to that, of course. But even that, I would say to John Lyon, who, you know, basically took the mantle of the, you know, the state fish distributions from our predecessors. I would say to him, I always look at the fish mapper before I go out so I know what's supposed to be there. And he goes, what does that mean? He's like, that's very, very aspirational. So even though we have DNR crews out there all the time doing IBI work, the data that was in something like a fish mapper is the best we have. And that's probably really not super true to life. And as I joke, I know what my ichthyology students get on their practicals. And they're the ones that are out there in the IBI crew. The IBI crew is the boring stuff. That's not game fish. That's just like the everyday fish. Plus it's hard. It's a lot of complex ID sorts of things. So, you know, the fishes that are observed and recorded in IBI work are not vouchered. They're not preserved and put on a shelf. So a lot of the data is as best we got based on observations of relatively young, inexperienced folks. So, as I said already, that, you know, a lot of the collections are poorly funded. And these days, you don't find a lot of people who are willing to work long periods of time through wide swaths of geography. They want quick publications, you know, relatively fundable, probably, you know, game fish driven sorts of projects. So looking at the big picture in huge amounts of time and space is rare, is very rare. And you can't publish a lot on that. You know, it took your father, what, 20 years to put that book together, right? It's an amazing book. It's a spectacular book. And he got a few publications along the way, but he wasn't driven by quick, you know, game fish driven science. So we have to think about all of that as we go through all of this. There are crazy things that happen out there. Many of you probably have been to Wolf Lake in Portage County.
Oh, yes.
It's beautiful, right? It's a beautiful place.
Swimming.
Yeah, great swimming beach. Here's the beach as it was a few years back. I always keep track of it. It's high in the moraine, so it's very prone to groundwater depletion. And I, you know, where's Nancy's back here? Nancy, one of the folks that developed a lot of data on this project. So before 2012, there were multiple studies done on Portage County lakes. And they came up with that many species in Wolf Lake. It went down about 7 feet. The maximum depth is 17 feet. You can see the topography of the lake there. After that, we did several seines and dip net surveys. We came up with 2 species. I noticed just yesterday that they stocked some walleye in 2024. But look at the species difference before and after 2012. 2012 was one of our major drought years. And we had lots and lots of groundwater drawing off for agricultural purposes. So you can go from a very diverse situation for a small lake. This is pretty diverse. It's hard to get 15 species in a small lake to not very diverse at all in a year. So it's pretty amazing. The amount of change that can happen is potentially alarmingly high. So yeah, this is my dots on maps. These are screenshots from the Fish Mapper application, which includes all of those major studies that I was talking about. This includes data that goes back to the 1935 study and a little bit before. There's a lot of Milwaukee Public Museum records in there too. Many of those specimens are at UBSP now too. We've shared with Milwaukee Public Museum. So we have 120 years or so of data in here. Many of these dots though are in John Lyons' database categorized as sort of unclear, insufficient. Many of these dots are an actual jar with actual fishes on a shelf in a collection somewhere that's been verified by ichthyologists. But many of them are just field crews with temporary folks, and it's just what they identify in the field at the time. No photos, no nothing. It's just, we got this many of this at a spot. So those dots are not all equal to each other. And I want to give image credits as we go through stuff. I'm going to keep track of time. I put my illustrations in here, shameless self-promotion, right? So I got a bunch of my illustrations in there. John Lyons did all the photography, or most of the photography, and then I borrowed some from the Fishes of Ohio, which is Milton Troutman. But you'll see a whole bunch of maps like this. And essentially what this is someone went there and they collected this many of something, and it's likely not in a jar. About, I don't know, a third of them are in a jar, but most of them are not. Is that Forrest? Good to see you. So there's lots of variability in here. This could be just a field crew that was out on a day and they site ID'd things. Oh, and by the way, too, you can use your naturalist apps on your phone and you can scan a bird or a plant and it comes up with the right ID or close. Some of the fish, I do this at Tree Haven all the time. I said, scan this fish. I just have a student grab their phone and scan this fish. Here's my phone. I don't care about that kind of stuff. But I have a student scan a fish with their phone and it'll just say fish. Thank you. Something with fins and scales that lives in the water, right? So the naturalist apps have not kept track of fishes, particularly most of our non-game species, very well. So, and so Willow and Forrest are here. They're part of my crew. We go out regularly and find new stuff in places that it should have been obvious that it was there. All kinds of new localities just right here. And notice where all the green stars are. They're kind of all very close by. So you can imagine, forecast that across the entire state. There's a lot to be desired. So we'll kind of go through these stories one by one. Something else to think about. Some of you probably have been by, it's across the street from the supper club in Amherst, Hoover Bait on the Tomorrow River. There's a phenomenon called bait bucket introduction, which happens all over the place all the time. And until we had, unfortunately, until we had the phenomenon known as viral hemorrhagic septicemia, a pathogen introduced to Wisconsin, bait dealers could essentially just go and seine bait from wherever they wanted, bring it back to their place and sell it wherever they were. So I don't, you know, if you know a little bit about Portage County, this water here, right out there, goes to the Gulf of Mexico. But where I live in Wapaka, or, you know, basically Custer East, that water goes to the St. Lawrence Seaway, St. Lawrence drainage. So we're on a divide. The glaciers set that up. Hoover is right there on the divide. And there have been, you know, situations where places like Hoover may have facilitated the movement of fishes from one side of that major divide to the other side, even though it's only, you know, dozens of feet tall. It's not like the Rocky Mountains or something. Also, you know, we have phenomena like the Portage, what I'm looking for, canal built between the upper Fox and the middle Wisconsin River, moving fish around. So we have to think about stuff like that. All right, so I said over and over and over already, vouchering specimens is key. Having an actual physical thing on a shelf preserved for anybody to come and see is very, very important. And I hope that I can carry that legacy forward at UWSP. So there are about 78, I didn't realize this, 78 species between Wausau and Wisconsin Rapids, or peat and well flowage, essentially. So that's pretty amazing. That's about 2/3 of the fishes we have in the entire state, just in the Wisconsin River itself. And then don't forget, all of these cold water feeders come right in the Wisconsin River, these feeder streams, little streams like Little Plover River. So you have a whole bunch more diversity to add, maybe 20 more species on top of that. When you just basically step a few miles out of the Wisconsin River itself. So just some anecdotes along this same theme. And again, I'm going to watch my time. I have 15, 20 minutes or so here. I had an awesome student to help me organize the fish collection between my predecessor and myself. And we worked for a semester. He graduated that December. So it was like, I had him for a semester. His name is Nick Barrett. He's now in charge of the fishes of the entire western half of the Chequamegon-Nicolet National Forest. And I hadn't taken him out in the field yet because it was so busy. You know, it was first semester. I just was barely alive, prepping for teaching. We go out and reestablish connection with this species and some dots on maps, right? And so I remember weird things. This is November 4th, 2008. We pulled one seine. It's so cold. Everything's frozen. You pull one seine, your hands don't work anymore. And we bring these fishes back to the lab. This is I right away recognized it as the bullhead minnow. And I quick sent images to John Lyons. He said, yeah, it's bullhead minnow. That's 110 river miles. Just one saying, just on a whim, middle of November, helping the student get to sample something before they graduate, right? And then this species is also I own these dots, my dot. This species now, if we would go to sample and update this map, you'd have just big, huge red dots all over the place here. This species was likely from a bait bucket introduction, likely from the St. Lawrence drainage. Or, I don't know if it's Hoover per se. We'd never be able to prove that. Notice that right by Hoover's place, there's a huge dot for those. But this species, I had caught with a friend of mine it was in graduate school. We came home for winter break. We were ice fishing, caught it on some panfish jigs. I was like, that's weird. It's not supposed to be in the backwater of the Wisconsin River. And I, again, emailed John Lyons. He and I knew John Lyons from way back. And he said, yeah, that's a good record. That's a new record. That's pretty cool. So just very simple, nothing everyday incidents can be new species, localities, and crossing continental divide localities, right? So really sort of earth-shattering stuff. So between the spot-tail shiner and the bullhead minnow, I'm always humbled by that. And these are, when we go out here, if we were just gonna go pull seines out here, the minnows and shiners and daces and things, they would be about a third, maybe half spot-tail shiners. And that's 20 years, 30 years, right? So it's pretty profound how the changes can happen. And then a shout out to fisheries managers. Remember I said that they're understaffed, right? And they're out trying to survey all of the fish diversity all of the time. So that's not an easy job. But a lot of the lake sturgeon that have been planted here are relatively easy to catch now. And some of them are in the 50-inch range. Those were the ones that were stocked in the 90s, if you'll recall. I don't remember if you pay attention to that kind of stuff. But so that means, though, that we have gravid females. Sturgeon need to be 25, 30 years old to be mature, especially females. So sturgeon, for sure, were located throughout the Wisconsin system, probably almost all the way up to its headwaters, historically. So we've got a breeding population now potentially. I couldn't go because I had a full load of classes that day, but I was invited to go with Luke Koenig, who's the fish manager up in Lozany for our chunk of the state. They have a big sort of like a jamboree for fishing for sturgeons, and they caught hundreds. So that's really, they fished basically between Wausau and Rapids. So long-lived fish, top of the line predator, top of the food web predator, being reintroduced with significant efforts by the Wisconsin DNR. So that's a plus. You can kind of equate what their impact might be to what happened when we reintroduced wolves to Yellowstone, right? Wolves were a major predator, and we eradicated them from Yellowstone, and their prey species, the ungulates, the elk, the mule deer, were not at the same levels they were prior to losing the wolf. They sort of expanded population. A lot of the plant communities and the grazing communities were significantly impacted by the lack of wolves and an expanse of grazers. So something like bringing a top predator back into a system can have significant effects on prey abundance. So sturgeons are often thought of as something that, feeds mainly on insects and mollusks and stuff like that, but they can also eat fairly large fish, especially large sturgeon. So they can kind of feed on what they want. So that's a very interesting and important phenomenon. So if we were going to do another study and put the dots on the map, you'd see dots up and down here. This is fun. So you guys know there's a small dam here on the Plover, right? Here's Tommy's Turnpike, right? There's a small dam there. And then we have a fairly significant dam at is it Post Road, Church Street, whatever you want to say, right there. And that dam has been worked on multiple times in recent memory. So there's interesting phenomena that happen there. The quillback is a type of sucker. It has a presence on the Wisconsin River around here, not a strong foothold. This is me last spring at Buchholz Park near the boat landing. We were trying out the new shocking boat, quillback there. Some of my angling friends have caught them here and there, so that's not earth shattering. But the slide up here, I just point to it, I suppose. This slide up here are a half dozen quillbacks that we caught at Iverson Park with one seine pull. Again, just nobody who's super trained pulls a seine in a swimming area at Iverson Park. And we put a population of fishes in a stream that never has had that record before in the history of us, I guess, right? Maybe they were there before, but no one's ever caught a quillback in the Plover River. Likely, they made their way from the lower Plover across that dam when it was open for a few years as they were repairing the dam. I don't, we can't prove that for sure, but just again, very, very simple, naive acts with primitive technology can move species boundaries all over the place, right? Something else that was really fun is one of our haunts, Mike. This area right here is real shallow, and it's just kind of maybe mid-thigh height, riffle, boulders, gravel, that kind of stuff. After and during the point, this is forest times, when the dam here was being worked on, the diversity of that little stretch right there went up crazily. So what may have happened, again, can't prove it, is that a lot of the Plover River species, Plover River is more, it's cooler water, faster moving, kind of, what you think of as trout water, not so much maybe in Stevens Point, but certainly up in Marathon County, up towards Antigo. But we saw common darter species. Darters are relatives of perches and walleyes. We saw darter species that were common still in those places, like Johnny darter, like the fantail darter, and the log perch, and the black-side darter. They're all, you would expect these to be in the Wisconsin River in that location. But we saw beautiful rainbow darter. They're more of a Plover River species, less of a Wisconsin River species in that location. And banded darter, another beautiful, brightly colored fish. These are relatively small. So we saw those for a few years. You can't get those anymore now in that spot, or I can't anyways, maybe someone else can. So, just dumping something like Metdill Pond for a few years can have profound effects on the communities. Iowa darters were before and after, but we can't, it's hard to find them now there. They're a little less common. Let's see, how much time do we have? It's 7:02. Who's in charge? When should I wrap up? Because I can just keep going forever. There's some I don't know if you guys knew this. We have two species of fish common to this area that are venomous. And it's not fun getting stung by them. I've recently grabbed one of these out of a net with my left hand. I had a tingly palm for a day. It's like getting stung by 4 or 5 bees at the same time. So these are small catfishes, tadpole mad tom and the stone cat mad tom. But there have been phenomena that I'm drawing upon my angling friends regarding in terms of catfish populations, catfishes. So you have 2 mad toms, you have the channel cat, which we have done extensive stocking. These dots don't accurately reflect that whatsoever. They're not up to date. There's lots of catfish in town. And then 3 bullhead species, the yellow, black, and brown bullhead. And Mike and I cut our chops, right? 10, 11 years old, right over there, literally right over there by the bridge, catching bullheads. I didn't know how to ID a brown versus a black bullhead. It's very difficult actually, and no one does it in the field. They don't look as distinct as my drawings would show. You have to run your finger along the spine, their pectoral spine. So we may have caught brown bullheads too, I don't know. There are 3 bullhead species that used to be relatively common out here. And my friend who fishes muskie a lot, and also my colleagues in the DNR have noticed that there aren't many bullheads. The other thing that I noticed is, so when I go out and fish the same spots that you and I used to fish down here, along the spillway and the Lowhead dams down there, it's about, I don't know, 6 or 7 to 1 channel catfish to smallmouth bass. It used to be about half and half. And I don't have any hard data there, but I know that there's a difference. I know there's more channel cats and there's fewer smallmouth bass. Bullhead are prime forage, especially when they're young, for channel catfish, for muskies. And the 12 Apostle Muskie Club has been reestablished our muskie population here very successfully. And so there's been a wide swing, probably, again, don't have hard data. People don't usually keep track of non-game fishes, as I was saying a bunch of times. But it's actually quite difficult to catch a bullhead. I couldn't even shock one when I was shocking fish last summer out here with the field experience students. So that's just an interesting sort of anecdote. I would imagine that things that feed on small catfishes would feed on young channel catfish as well. Channel catfish can't prove, may have like a growth advantage over the bullhead, so they become predatory over the bullheads even in the same year class. Something that might be going on. It'd be interesting to do some studies out there. So yeah, there's things like that. The flathead catfish was introduced into lakes like Wazicha and Arrowhead Lake. They got over the dam. They likely would have been in the middle of Wisconsin historically. Maybe the dams had something to do with them not being anymore, but now there's a very well-established flathead catfish population, particularly below Wisconsin Rapids. And students have caught 40-pounders. So that's interesting, and relatively recent, and relatively quick. Yeah, I was gonna say smallmouth bass. I forgot I had the slide in the wrong place, but yeah, so smallmouth bass versus channel catfish out here is going on right now. There's a battle for being sort of a mid-level predator, generalist predator. I think it'd be interesting to do some research on that. So Lucas Koenig up at the, our fish manager up in Mosin, actually, for us, I think he went to class with you. He's interested in these sorts of questions. And he had my class in the summer. Okay, so just watch it in time. Again, I can go on and on and on and on. The one thing I wanted to say, one more thing, last thing. There are this group of suckers called red horses. They have carp size scales. They're metallic scales. They're large. They often are just treated as trash fish, rough fish. The common carp was introduced. Both bullheads and carps were favored by folks in the 19th century. Those were game fish, important food fish. They brought them here on purpose. Bullheads were native, but they fostered their development. I always say my mom's mom lived on the Great Lakes, on the river tributary to the Great Lakes, and two rivers right there. She preferred bullhead over trout and whitefish and ciscos and stuff like that, perch. So our forebears, and if you haven't tried, I don't like fish in general, so you can't go by what I say. But they're firm fish. They're not super fishy flavored, and they taste better, I think, than the commercial catfish that you can get. But these are native. These are native rough fish, the red horses. The big three around here are silver red horse, golden red horse, and shorthead red horse. They're known for having Y bones, which are muscle-bound ribs, essentially, that are scattered throughout their fillet. So they're not as desirable as other fishes for that reason. A lot of folks make fish cakes out of them. They grind them up in a meat grinder, so the bones are not an issue. It's hard to fillet them out of their bones. You can also pickle them like the people do with pike, and the pickling, the acid pulls the calcium out of the bones, and they are softer that way. But down south and in the mid-south, like Missouri, they make fish cakes out of them. So we have three native red horses. And this one, verified, 100% accurate. The black red horse, they're quite common in the mid-south. But they're in the Wausau flowage where the Little Eau Claire meets the Wisconsin River. As a matter of concern, yes, we probably have to open up mines for rare earth minerals, but part of the mining that is proposed is in this structure called the reef right here. So I'd be really worried about if mining does start happening in a major way there, if these populations are at risk at all. Black red horse. But that's just striking. And John Lyons has been out there and he's collected them, he's handled them. That's a thing. There's another small population there, but why they're there, who the heck knows? But there are also examples of something that is exceedingly rare that we need to keep track of, and they could be significantly influenced if lots of mining starts happening in Eastern Marathon. So I'll leave it there. Lots more anecdotes, but thank you very much.
Yes, my name's Ned Grossnickel. I taught Water 380 at Tree Haven.
All right.
2007 and 2008. I'm glad they have a new shocking system compared to the one I was using, but it was fun even then. The more important thing is I live on Lake DeBay. I fished the same spot using the same bait for 30 years. And I have really noticed a significant increase in channel catfish hitting my bait and not so many walleyes. I do get a few walleyes, but not the number I used to get. And I can relate to your smallmouth bass 1-to-1, now 6 or 7-to-1, to channel catfish. And the channel catfish are big. I'm catching 4 to 8 pound channel catfish, typically. A lot of 4-pounders and sometimes 8-pounders. I sometimes get a yellow bullhead, not very many.
That's interesting. That's
Yeah,
good to know.
I
was gonna
get-
ask you that.
Occasionally I'll get crappies. Occasionally I'll get smallmouth bass, not very many. But there's a fair number of walleyes, and there used to be a lot of walleyes 30 years ago. So I see the changes that you're talking about right where I live. And I try to communicate that with my politicians in Washington, D.C., that climate change is making a difference. At least that's one of the contributing factors. It really is making a difference in the fisheries because, of course, walleye is a cool water fish.
Right.
Whereas channel catfish is a warm water fish.
Yeah.
And personally, I don't like to eat channel catfish. I do like to eat walleyes.
Right, yeah.
So, and the other thing is a lot of them are in the 12 to 14 inch range, which is not legal until you hit 15 inches.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of them are not keepers of the walleyes.
Yeah, I haven't talked with Lucas recently about this, but yes, it's very difficult for us to transcend that 15-inch range for walleyes here. You go to Wolf River, no problem. But here, yeah, it's like, you gotta go through whatever, 50, 60,
Yeah,
13.5-inch walleyes before. you
but
get
I did
keepers.
catch one that was 27 3/4 inches. And that was a
Wow,
big,
nice.
big walleye.
Yeah.
But I've only caught one of those in 30 years. And I have a lot of hours of effort.
I bet.
The catch per unit effort,
Yeah, yes, TPU.
a lot of effort.
I've had a couple of students in that stretch who can get big walleyes routinely. I don't know their spots. I told them not to tell me their spots.
Yeah.
I'll find them out.
Well, I'm just doing
Try
it
it
in
on
my
there.
dock.
Oh, yeah, no, if you're just fishing this, yeah, exactly, yeah.
But there are hot spots and I'm sure I don't know where all of them are.
No, and I, like I said, I don't ask for students to share that kind of stuff. I think that's just not fair. But yeah, there's very rarely fish that walleyes that big out here.
I'm glad you mentioned climate change as one of the contributing factors.
Well, and the river changes characteristics quite a bit. Going through the rapids, Wausau Point Rapids. Down here, it's slower, muddier, right? This is the bottom of that glacial lake, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So, yeah, here's cooler water is what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
With more agitation because of the rock formations and stuff, so higher dissolved oxygen. So, yeah, but if you put something like a generalist, like a channel catfish in there, perhaps they can outcompete.
Right.
Smallmouth walleye, yeah. I have lots of.
Is the 14-inch walleye, is like a what, sir?
I was just to say, I live in the North River County, and there's quite a few sturgeon. And you had mentioned that it's getting to the stage of spawning now, but where do they spawn with the dams?
I don't know for sure, but what they're gonna use is, it's something that's rocky and agitated by current. So they could potentially spawn on any of these dams or below any of these dams. In the Wolf River system, they're attracted to riprap, and they're attracted, a lot of my students go to the Shawano Dam and they collect them, which is kind of the first major dam on the Wolf from Lake Winnebago. So I would guess it's kind of the same thing. I don't know for sure. And I would guess that Lucas would have a better handle on that, but probably below dams.
I know they're catching them, quite a few.
Oh, yeah, no, and there's a lot of little ones too, now, they've been stacked. Yeah, there's some big ones now
Yeah,
too.
plenty of really good spawn because the dams in the way.
I would say right at the foot of the dams, right where there's the most vegetation and gravel. I guess, yeah.
Is the high number of 14.5 inch walleyes due to the food source? Is it due to the slot limits the DNR has? Because this is extraordinary in this area, the number of walleyes you'll catch until you hit 15.
Yeah,
I don't know if anybody really knows. Yes, they put that slot limit on a long time ago, right? Trying to foster, so the fish that are in the slot would have bred, I think, twice. So to get to 20 inches, you would have mated twice. And I think a walleye at 15 mates one time, something like that. I don't know where the data are on that. I don't know if it's forage based. I don't know, if it's something, you know, the water. I don't know there are a couple of people.
I just had a quick question about wondering with the climate change, we've noticed that the rivers just don't have the ice cover in the winter in some of the lakes that they used to. And how is that impacting? We don't know.
Yeah, I don't know personally. Folks in the DNR might know better than me. Yes, for sure, there's less ice. And it seems like, you know, like today's a perfect example. It seems like December replaced March, right? So it's really hard to get ice in December. But, you know, that sometimes when my colleagues go up to Tree Haven, there's still ice in the bays and some of the lakes. And that's relatively unusual. So yeah, the timing's all shifted. Around here, I would guess too, that would have a big effect on, we call winter kill, where, you know, ice can cap off an area and it runs out of oxygen. A lot of the backwaters up here did that all the time. So there, you know, weren't any fish in there to fish for in February. So, you know, we're opening up areas maybe for fish to move into. It's an excellent question, yeah.
Is there any comparison data between the numbers of species in this portion of the river now and say before the Clean Water Act?
Yeah. I think we're just looking at these dots. And I would say, I don't know if we've added any to my knowledge. I don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of all the dates for all the species. There is one that I'm interested in. That was one of my this one right here, the next one of my talking points. This is state endangered, oh, sorry, state threatened. You can get them in this is the Hemlock Creek system. That's the Mill Creek right there. Or wait, no, sorry, that's the Yellow River, excuse me. Yeah, Yellow River right there. And they were found here pre-dam, so in the 30s, late 20s. And they were up in the Clover River. I haven't ever seen them. My students went here and caught them. They're still in Hemlock Creek, which is kind of like just north of Rapids. But yeah, to my knowledge, I don't know if we've like added species. Probably the mix, well, excuse me, aside from maybe the spot tail shiner. But the maybe the mixture, the relative abundance of this versus that has changed since then. Certainly, I mean, since our childhood, just Mike and my childhood, the water's a lot better in the summer. It used to be pea soup green, lots of extra, you know, nutrients. You live on the river too, John. It seems a lot cleaner than it was when I was growing up. But yeah, Clean Water Act was at 72. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know for sure, species wise, but mixture wise, perhaps we could easily look in DNR records for that. For not non-game, but for game fishes, particularly. That's a good question.
Are there any citizen science projects related to fish?
I've pitched that. Lynn and I were thinking about that pre-pandemic. So some of the, so you guys were involved, and so was Nancy in the gosh, where is it? Come on. Oh, it's gonna stall on me, isn't it? Some of the lakes in eastern Portage County, crashed, darn it. Yeah, so some of our students will get new species records, warmouth, least starter in lakes with the simplest technique, like kindergartner stuff. Going out with a dip net, just dipping in and knowing what you're looking at. So I think there's a great potential for that. I don't know how permitting would go. But yeah, we found, weren't you guys out, you guys were in, yeah, the Wolf Lake and the Reinhardt Lake. I saw you guys in the audience for Reinhardt Lake too. Didn't I? Or, yeah, it's, where, how would you describe where Reinhardt Lake is, Nancy?
It's near Sunset Lake,
It's
just
like
a little bit south of it.
south and a little east.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, so our students are out there, you know, Forest among them. I don't know, Willow, I don't know if we got much when we only did a few samples here and there. But yeah, so I think that'd be awesome if people just go out there and that's, so oh, there, it unfroze. The Fish Hotel book, or is it the Bluegill book? Has the fish viewer in it?
I think it's either bluegill or Iowa Dart.
Yeah. So Lynn started putting in the books, you know, how would you assess what fishes are nearby if you, especially if you're a youngster? But yeah, it's like mist nets and birds. It's the same basic idea. It's relatively simple technology. Yeah, I'm curious because we just stumble on this stuff. This one simple little net pole with totally green students. And all you need to know is what you're looking at. That's it. Yeah, it's a great question.
Use Words document anything particularly interesting. How would you get that information like to you or to actual records?
That's a great, yeah. So everyone's got cameras, right? Everyone's got, and I always carry clear-sided, they're whatever, Rubbermaid shoeboxes, clear-sided.
Containers?
You can get the really nice ones are Q-tip dispensers. They're a little square plexiglass thing that ichthyologists carry around. You throw a fish in there, take a picture. I wish I pulled that slide. I had that slide here, but yeah, so you basically would just take pictures of fish. And maybe the naturalist apps would work. Maybe you could figure it out yourself, but certainly you could send it to DNR professionals. Every single sort of subsections, like 2 or 3 counties usually has a fish manager. And you could say, I think I found such and such, and send it off to them. And you could send it to John Lyons. It still has a DNR. No, actually, John Lyons is now, he's the curator of vertebrates at the museum at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. You send it to me. There's folks, there were folks, I don't know, now that UW Waukesha is not a thing, there's Mike Powers is at the Milwaukee Public Museum. There's folks at, we have David Limzarich at Eau Claire. There's folks at a lot of the campuses, and you could send them pictures. You just email everybody all at one time. But certainly DNR has folks. There's also folks in the Natural History Survey part of the DNR that does distributions, threatened and endangered kind of stuff. So the nice thing is everyone's got a way to take a picture, right? Just got to get a good one. Yeah. So it's some of these things are hard to ID. You have to have the right kind of picture. But folks that have looked at a lot of them probably can handle it even with a not so good picture. But yeah, it's a great thought.
Not a question, but just a compliment. Your illustrations are very.
Yeah.
Thank you. I get 16 cents per field guide, so. We're over 55,000 copies though, so I mean, but in 12 years, so you can do the math. Yeah, and then the field guide in Nebraska wouldn't really suit us that much here either. And I get nothing for that. So. That was a one. Thank you though. And then, I have my students take the, biological illustration class too, that I teach them. Hopefully. And actually, right here, Ryan, he took my class, I don't know if he learned anything, I mean, actually, he took it with Eric Wild and I together, I think. Here's a natural talent anyways, his mom's a natural talent, but yeah, we have a lot of illustrators that come out of our program. Have you seen the beautiful murals in the stairwell in Natural Resources Building? Mary, there. And Ryan has done, what, a couple of.
Those are
hasn't he?
awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's done a fair amount.
yeah, Ryan's a very excellent illustrator. I don't know if I do much to foster their talent, I just help them with the logistics of how to pull it off. Illustration doesn't pay well. But it's fun.
Okay, good.
Anything else for Justin this evening? Let's give him another round of applause.